Și vă mulțumesc foarte mult că sunteți aici. Doamna secretar general adjunct, Ioana Gorman, mulțumim. Tuturor celorlalți invitați, vă mulțumim că sunteți alături de noi. E un proiect important, interesant și eu zic că e un instrument pentru toată administrația publică din România, nu doar pentru arhivele naționale. Și sper că împreună cu colegii norvegieni să continuăm această colaborare în așa fel încât să putem să aducem un plus de claritate și un plus de eficiență în administrația publică din România, pentru că una dintre sarcinile noastre importante ca instituția statului român este să ajutăm la gestionarea informației, principal la instituțiile din administrația publică, indiferent de formare. Că sunt în formă electronică, că sunt pe format hârtie sau nu știu ce alte formate. Pentru că toată această informație trebuie să fie gestionată în așa fel încât să ne facem treabă. Pentru că arhivul nu este un scop în sine. Ea vine ca un corolar al unei activități. Și mi-am propus astăzi să vă țin, așa fiind și profesor, o mică lecție spre ceea ce înseamnă arhivele, filozofia arhivelor și în același timp pentru a vă atrage atenția asupra unor lucruri pe care noi le vedem și le considerăm firești, dar nu sunt întotdeauna văzute din exterior. Pentru că a defini lucrurile arhivistice în limba română e destul de dificil. Discursul meu, care inițial trebuia să fie în limba română, în ultimele zile l-am schimbat și am spus că trebuie să ținem în limba engleză, pentru un plus de claritate. Și asta și din diverse cauze, o să vedeți că la un moment dat o să folosesc niște termeni pe care putem să traducem în limba română destul de aproximativ sau avem 2-3 termeni care ar putea fi folosiți. Așa că o să trebuiască să suportați engleza pentru, nu știu, vreo 10 minute, nu să vă torturez prea mult. So, I'm glad to see you and tell you once more stories about archivists, the social role, and about archival terminology, and about the difficulties of archival terms from English or French into Romanian. So, for that reason, I choose the easy way, my speech in English. The difficulties of translation start from the very reason we are here. The project Arhivare by Design, our way to define electronic document management challenges. It was a big challenge for my colleagues to find the best way to do this. In this context, I want to mention the fact you are in the process of translating a book, which in Romania is a very good book. So we translated in Romania a book called A Matter of Facts, The Value of Evidence in the Information Age. The author is Laura Miller, a Canadian archivist and teacher. And with this book, we have difficulties right from the title, A Matter of Facts. How we translate that in Romanian. Okay. I think it's obvious in the contemporary world, it's a turning point now. The world is in a crisis, and therefore archives, as fine sensor of society, share this fate. Look what's happening in the United States with National Archives. And I think also it's an evidence crisis too. I want to convince you that the evidence, which is different from data, informations, or fact, is critical to accountability, identity, and memory, and ultimately for democracy. If we are going to survive this perilous time, for the world, and they are perilous, we need evidence. We need access to government reports that demonstrate whether public officials are fulfilling their promises, to property documents that prove we own our land, to birth certificate that verify our citizenship or trace our lineage. And to archival photographs that help us recollect past times. Because so many of that sources of evidence are now digital, we cannot just assume they are going to survive as a trustworthy source of proof. We all must look differently at how we capture, preserve, share, and protect our sources of evidence. Otherwise, we may not be able to access these critical sources of proof when we need them. Understanding of interpretation of and attitudes to concepts such as privacy, freedom, and secrecy depend on our position and on the control of context. It is often easier and safer to engage in debate about these issues from the safety of our own positioning within the profession. But it's important to us, like archivists, to look from the outside. We operate in a sphere of ideas about rights, systems, ideas, and stories where boundaries are porous. By looking at the development of ontologies, we can postulate how the search for principles on framework can inform our understanding and interpretation of information. Can we identify structures which will help us conceptualize properties in records and information? Or are ideas such as evidence and recordness primary objects of our conscious and concepts of our mind? We can discuss which, rather by determining the essence of the archive, allows for the interpretation of social historical existence and context, including the development and impact of different technologies. And this informs our understanding of what we could call the nature and use of records and information. The search for understanding, if not a definition, of the record is presented in an article by Jennifer Meehan, who examines the archival concept of evidence as the relation between a record and an event. Implicit in her paper is the idea of many philosophies and, again, the importance of the outside in investigating how other disciplines may help us working against the grain. When contemplating records as evidence and or concepts or memory and terms such as value, use, and the nature of documents. We can explore the idea of the archive as a nexus, the focus on an interplay between the record, which both represent and triggers and creators, archivists, and users. So, it is clear that the great importance in any construct of philosophy of archives, of an archive is interplay between creators, users, keepers, owners, and local, cultural, even international factors. In other words, record-keeping systems are socially constructed and political contingent. And nowadays we can see the danger of a philosophy that seeks constantly deconstruct the truth in a context such in USA Today, and argues that rather for acknowledging the role of archives in supporting accountability and promoting justice. Archives are not delusional. Some facts count, other are skewed. Even when straight from the Dust archive, right, a historian and archivist, English historian and archivist Alan Mansell, the evidence always pre-exists with narrative structures and is fragmented with cultural meanings. Who put the archive together? Why? And what did they include or exclude? Archival research is mostly confined to the derivation of meaning from the contents of the documents, while neglecting what is expressed by the form of the archival documents and the fonts. This may be illustrated by the headings under information was collected, record, summarized, and reported. For examples, gypsies under police administration, contagious diseases under admiralties, so on. This continues right up to our time. According to the regulations in, libraries, for example, documents about handicapped children have to be filled under children with disabilities. Sick and infirm are no persons without illness and disabilities. Gypsies can be found under normal people. But there is a great difference between the classification employed in libraries and in the internet on the hand, and archives on the other. In the former, documents are classified according to the abstract schemes. For archives, it is not today's political correctness that determines the classification, but the original context of the documents in which the creator of the records captured the information. This is so-called, archivalization, produced as much as it records the event. A French philosopher, Jacques Derrida, invented the French term archivation. The English translator used archivalization. This term is the conscious or unconscious choice to consider something worth archiving. It should be seen not only in the technological sense, as Derrida understands it, but also, and especially, in the socio-cultural sense. As for example, in one culture, a record is archivable fact, and it's important. In another, it's not. Quod non est in actis, non est in mundo. What is not in the records does not exist. It's an all legal maxim. So archivalization, therefore precede archiving. In a metaphor, if you want, the searchlight that has to sweep, the word for something to light up in the archival sense, before we proceed to register the record and file it, in short, before we archive it. But distinguishing archivalization from archiving, we gain an insight into the social and cultural factors, the standards and values, the ideology, that infuse the creation of Arhivare. This insight is of the greatest importance, especially as changing technology alters the way records are created and controlled. In the new arena, we have to intervene at the front end of the electronic record keeping. If we don't take archivalization into account at the stage, what, why, and how is something filled in a computer, hardly any records will be created and only a little will be kept for posterity. And you see here again the importance of this project. In other words, my speech was about archiving, about context, and through this, I want to show how important are projects like this, and I hope future projects made together with our colleagues, our Norwegian friends, I can say. And at the end, I want to tell you that this speech was built with bricks made by archivists around the world. And I link some archivists, Roland Erika Patricia Wadley, Karen Brown, Michael Piggott, Alan Mansell, Luciana Duranti, Terry Cook, Glenn Harris, and others. So, thank you.